No Kentucky Derby hangover as the Preakness comes up on us very, very quickly. And this Saturday, the Preakness, the second leg of the Triple Crown. Best way to play it? You know what it is. Head over to Naira Bets, nairabets.com. If you're not a member, use the promo code MATCH200. We'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. Play the Preakness, play everything through Naira Bets. Mage is the only one courageous enough to try the Preakness after the Kentucky Derby. And unlike last year when Rich Strike didn't come back, Mage is there, and he is the horse to beat in this year's Preakness. He was extremely good in the Kentucky Derby. Did he run the best race? No. Two Phils probably ran the best race, but he definitely ran the second best race in here. An excellent ride by Javier Castellano, always knowing where his chief competition, Angel of Empire, who finished third, as well as Tapit Trice, who didn't really show up. But knowing where those closers were, he did a good job getting this horse out of the gate better than he normally breaks and getting good position. There's no question that Mage was helped by the fast pace, and Two Phils battled him to the wire despite being close to that very fast pace, a pace that took its toll on every other horse that was anywhere near it, those horses losing by 14 to up to about 30 lengths. But Mage ran well, and for a horse making just his fourth start and his only run as a 3-year-old, he's been remarkable. His trainer, Gustavo Delgado, has excellent numbers with horses coming back on reasonably short rest, coming back in 2 weeks. The history of horses coming out of the Kentucky Derby and running well in the Preakness, it's much stronger than the history of horses coming back and running clunkers. I don't really worry about this horse coming back on relative short rest. He's improved with every start, and if he runs anywhere close to as well as he ran in the Derby, this field is in trouble. Now, he's not going to get the pace that he got in the Kentucky Derby, but he's a horse that can be closer to pace. The only reason he's been farther off in his recent starts, sure, the starts had something to do with it, but also they've been bigger fields and faster paces. Javier Castellano is a great gate jockey. He's acutely aware of how important the break is going to be here. And like Cloud Computing, who had some gate issues leading into the Preakness when he won it 6 years ago, Javier will get good position with Mage, and I think that Mage is going to be a handful to beat. But like the morning line maker and like the public, I believe his chief competition is going to come from the number 8 First Mission for trainer Brad Cox. First Mission comes into this race looking a little bit like Early Voting, who won it last year. We're taking a look at First Mission winning Lexington at Keeneland last time out, and Early Voting had 3 starts. Now, this horse actually won his prep for this race, where Early Voting had finished second in the Wood Memorial. Now, Early Voting had a better tactical advantage because he had speed, and there really wasn't a lot of it in the Preakness, and able to have him a real edge. There isn't a strong pace, though, and the outside draw for First Mission allows Luis Saez to get whatever position he really wants with First Mission. I expect he's going to show up and run well. The question is, will he run well enough to beat Mage? I don't love his chances, but he's my second choice. And to be honest here, he's my second choice, and I've got a pretty big gap back to the others. A lot of people are going to like the third choice National Treasure. And while ultimately he's going to be one of my top choices, he's not a horse I'm interested for in the win slot in this race. National Treasure I just don't think is that good. Unfortunately, we only got to see one of the first 3 finishers out of the Santa Anita Derby run in the Derby. And that horse, Mandarin Hero, did no running whatsoever. Practical Move and Skinner, they were scratched, didn't make the race. I don't think the California crop was that strong this year. And I also don't think National Treasure is that good. Is he going to be forwardly placed? Could he get a good trip in here? Yeah. Is Bob Baffert a tough guy to throw out in Triple Crown races? Yes, he is. But to me, National Treasure is a horse that's okay, but he's had his chance to take that step forward, and he just seems to keep running the same race. He did not have trouble in the Santa Anita Derby. He didn't lack room. He couldn't hold his position because he wasn't fast enough to keep up with the other horses. He's okay. I just don't think he's good enough to be a major factor in this year's Preakness. And then there's Blazing Sevens for Chad Brown, and a lot of people are going to make the comparison. Chad Brown has won this race twice in the last 6 runnings, both times with horses that had the points to make the Kentucky Derby, but they chose to skip it to wait for the Preakness. This is his win in the Champagne and the best race he's probably ever run. And I think it's very important to note that it came in a 1-turn, elongated sprint at a mile. I don't believe that Blazing Sevens is a horse that gets better with distance, and I think he has shown that in all of his starts. He's made a little bit of run. Discount is Fountain of Youth. He didn't show up that day. He was essentially eased. In the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, in the Bluegrass, he made his move, and he didn't have a finish in those races. The first two finishers in the Bluegrass came back and ran poorly in the Derby. He got to their flanks coming the top of the stretch, and he wasn't able to finish. To me, he runs like a horse that will ultimately have success going 7/8 to a mile further in his future, and I don't think he's good enough, nor does he want this much distance. So if he's effective in here, he'll be Chad Brown's third winner of the Preakness in the last 7 runnings, and this one I won't have any money on whatsoever. Some people are interested in Perform for Shug McGay, and I understand the appeal of taking Shug McGay. He is one of the great trainers, really, of our lifetimes. And his race in the Federico Tessio is an interesting one. You're going to see him try to make a move sort of inside of horses. He's the one in pink there who's getting forced over the rail, and he definitely was bested here because he had to find room, he had to find a seam, and when he finally found it, he closed explosively at the end. But I do think it's important to note, he got a quick pace to do it, and yes, the race didn't collapse. It just didn't collapse because it wasn't a very good field. On the other hand, it was Perform's best race. He's an improving horse. He won with a bit of trouble in there, and he has a great trainer. So there are reasons to be optimistic he can keep improving. My problem is he needs to take another big step forward, and he was aided by a fast pace in the Tessio, and he's not likely to get that in this year's Preakness. And I think that's a perfect segue to Red Route 1. A deep, deep closer for Steve Asmussen, and another horse that's just not really fast enough to win this race. And he's going to get no pace to close into. This race, his last one, this major Preakness prep, the Boathouse Row from Oaklawn, kind of a new race. I'm kidding a little bit. He made a big run. He looked impressive. They were lesser horses. The pace was fast up front, and he was able to get it done. Neither of those conditions fit here, so maybe he can get a lesser award, but I'll also be surprised if Red Route 1 is a major player in this year's Preakness. I'm a chalk-eating weasel this year in the Preakness. I'd like to find some prices. I don't have them, and I'm not going to try to just stab and pick them. I like Mage. I think he's going to come here in 3 weeks with an attempt to become a Triple Crown winner. Behind him, I think really First Mission is the only major threat to him in this race. Yes, I have National Treasure and Blazing Sevens third and fourth, but frankly for me, they're a distant third and fourth. Any multi-race bets I play will only include Mage and First Mission. If it doesn't chalk out, at least reasonably in here, I'm going to be a loser in this year's Preakness, and I'm rooting for Mage to come to Belmont in 3 weeks to make history. Best way to play the Preakness and all the races, you know the drill. Head over to NYRABets.com. Use the promo code MATCH200 and we'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. Best of luck in this year's Preakness and all your bets.